spirit of matter. And this is actually a moon night and Mars hour. Ascendant in Cancer, so ruled by the moon, the jet, with the moon in 5 degrees Libra, living in opposition with Neptune, living the conjunction with Venus that ingressed into Libra. So, and this happens in the 4th house for this chart. Venus is ruling Ketu at 23 degrees of Libra, and Jupiter and Uranus in 9 and 21 degrees Taurus, respectively, both of them retrograde, Taurus in the 11th house. So, Venus co-present with Ketu, okay? And yes, I see here Mars getting very close to oppose Uranus. It's gonna happen just a couple of days, and then on November, I believe 17, we have the Cassini, which I talked about in another episode. Mercury in 29 degree of Scorpio, sextile in Pluto, separating from a trine to Neptune. So all that going on. But now I want to talk about Venus co-present with Ketu in Libra. So Venus, relationships, assets, okay, appearance or image, art, expression, voice, okay, Libra, trade, heuristics, also worldly politics, okay, balance of powers is Libra. The scales is Libra, is literally a balance of powers, okay, so politics, especially balances of powers. Ketu, wisdom coming from ancient, from antiquity, from past lives, from the past, from history, as well as we've been here before, we're letting go now. Okay, so it's both remembering certain wisdom, recovering our memory, of revisiting the old, but also letting go of something, bringing it all together. Okay, Venus co-present with Ketu in Libra, letting go of old balances of power, especially in worldly politics. As you can understand, this is a major transit. Letting go of international law, the way it was done, okay, the way we did international law, whether it's war crimes, okay, the way that we did that, we're letting it go. We are also looking back at how things were. There are certain forms of creative art or singing or music, but also visual arts, okay, that we are re-inspecting. We are re-inspecting images. Ketu is also occult, okay, because it is the ancient wisdom from past lives. It's also a type of knowledge from the divine, okay? And so there is, with occult, there is knowledge from the divine, and then there is the inversions of it. So we are looking at, we are letting go of certain things, perhaps certain forms of art, certain forms of expression. We are re-inspecting them in new eyes, and we are letting go. releasing. There's also voice and values. Okay, so they're gonna be, of course, with Ketu, yes, with Venus going over Ketu, and especially on the 22nd degree, that deserves an episode of its own. Venus will conjunct Ketu on the 22nd degree of To Kill and Be Killed. It's not something that I'm looking forward to. It is a part of life, unfortunately. So that can be death of certain figures in heuristics, artists, even models, okay, people who are known by their image, so world acclaimed judges or traders, even business people, okay, and also we are letting go of the way we did business and our understanding of business. We are revisiting the old, okay, the knowledge from antiquity, okay, and then we can also pay attention to things differently, and we change the way we do business, we change the way we do relations, but the core changes are the changes in the balance of power, in the balancing of values, okay, privacy versus security, okay, or safety versus wisdom, okay. Now, even though it is true that these things are not opposing polarities, and to be free you need to be safe, to be safe you need to be free, but with Libra there is this binary thinking. There's the scales, okay? There's this side and that side, and we're balancing them. And the way to balance more than two things is to go with two and then compare them, then add the third one, compare them, and so on and so forth. So the balancing process of Libra is going to think about weighting one value against another, okay. You need to be safe in order to be free, you need to be free in order to be safe, but when it comes to values of Libra, and this is where the pitfall can be, because there can be ultimatums to people, and those ultimatums are imaginary, okay, they are of image, because if you say you want to be free or you want to be safe, okay, it's ridiculous, because you need to be safe to be free and you need to be free to be safe. Yes, but they can be with this one an atmosphere, whenever something touches on Libra, an atmosphere of an ultimatum, okay, this or that, because Libra finds it also difficult to decide, okay, and when it comes to looks, then it's like, well, this shade of lipstick or that shade of lipstick. And then you weight it against the shade of the tonality of the face or the makeup or whatnot. Okay, but when it comes to values, values is not makeup. You need to be free and you need to be safe. There is no compromise here. Huh? But with Libra, we can get into certain ultimatums. And we also see, in the world, it's like, is it going to be this country or is it going to be that country? Okay? So let's say you suddenly divided the entire United States to Chinese or Russians. It's going to be China or it's going to be Russia. But it's like, it's United States. It's not China, it's not Russia. Okay? With Libra, you can be given such ultimatums. Is it going to be free China from the ocean to the ocean, or free Russia from the ocean to the ocean? Okay? Well, it's like, it's the United States. Everybody here is immigrant. Everybody here is immigrant. Okay? And with these notions in mind, we can understand that we are letting go of an old balance of powers. That in itself could have been imaginary. Previously, I did an episode about the nuclear missile crisis in Cuba, and I learned it was resolved by a telephone line between the Pentagon and, I think it was the Pentagon, United States, and the Kremlin. So ever since 1963, there is a direct line of communication between the Kremlin and the Pentagon. Okay, how come Edward Snowden, who was working for United States and he's exposed the United States spies on everyone, how come he's able to hide in Russia? Okay, if the communication is direct, how come he's sheltered? It's a question. It's a question, but it also tells us that when we are going to see a lot. Every time something touches Libra, and we're going to have 2 and something years with Ketu in Libra, we're going to see a lot of. It's China versus Russia, it's Russia versus the United States, it's Pakistan versus Afghanistan, and of course the ages-old Israel, Palestine, and so on and so forth. But we also need to understand that with Libra, in many cases, what we're trying to balance against is the division itself, okay, between those things that we're trying to balance is at least somewhat artificial. At least somewhat artificial, okay? But it's also not a complete union. And then we come to relationships. The way we used to balance relationships, we are letting it go. We are and something happens that we are revisiting those things. Okay, if in the past you think, oh, a married couple gets married, they want to buy a house. I literally was given a reading to somebody who wants to buy a house, but there was like, we're in the middle of a world war. And they want to buy a house and build a house, and how will we do it, and how this. I was like, let's say I put the world war aside, which is impossible. But okay. It cannot, the old ways was you get married, even if same-sex marriage, somebody gets in debt, the other person is tied to this debt too. The entire family is tied to this debt. Okay, and so the ways we did things, tying everybody into financial violence, basically, because you don't have individual choice, we are purging also some of that, because we understand, it's very clear. With Libra, you have to have the other polarity is Aries, and this polarity means you have to have yourself. Now we are letting go of trying to balance myself, and because Rahu, and this is why this is Mars hour, Rahu is ruled by Mars, and it's sitting pretty with Aries in Aries, is the individual. And Rahu reminds us there is an individual in this relationship. That we must not completely be like union. Okay? We do need a certain sort of separation. And so the old ways in which we have been balancing each other out, we are rethinking them, revisiting them, and now as Venus leaves the opposition to Neptune, she is disillusioned, and sometimes drastically. drastically disillusioned. But in Libra, Venus is at home. Okay, Venus understands we need to have both separation and balance of power to make something work. It's not something you can play with. You need to have both separation and balance of power to make something work. This is what the scale is, okay? It's two distinct sides of the scale where you put two distinct things, otherwise you wouldn't have to compare something if it's not different. But eventually you have to weight them the same. If it's two people, okay, they weight the same. Two children, the same. They weight the same. It's two children. What are you comparing? You're comparing children. They weight the same. Lives here, lives there, they weight the same. War crimes, they weight the same. Also when they happen in Pakistan. Women rights, they weight the same. Whether they are happening to people that are currently facing atrocities done against them, like Palestine, Afghanistan, Israel, we gotta give women rights. We need to give all women rights. They weight the same. Okay? And so the way in which we are letting go is by both revisiting. Okay, Ketu is what was. So there is a sense of, are we going back to what was? But in that sense, that we are looking at, hey, how has the world been in the 9 years now, in the 18 years now, and we look back especially at how we balance things, balances of power, relations between states, assets, okay, our own relationships, the music, the art that we've been consuming, our expenses. For some, if it's one of your expenses houses, you might be doing your balance, or actually your bank balance even, okay? Our values, moral system, our heuristics. How have we been treating? You know, in Israel there was a very interesting case now, because there were two people that slaughtered the babies in the 7th of October. And they were caught. Okay, so they were caught. And so there were no lawyers that agreed to represent them. No lawyers agreed to represent a person that hears a baby cry and boo, boo, boo until the baby stops crying and slaughters people. No lawyer agreed to represent them. Okay? Now you ask, what about the women that were raped and beheaded? What about women that are being raped? What about men who work in construction and they're dead and nobody stops that? Okay? And so we have a preliminary case where no lawyer agrees to represent, and this shakes the whole heuristic system, because we are dealing with war crimes. Okay? We know it's not a stupid thing. Of course, we want it to be visible, because you would have to bring somebody from elsewhere, perhaps The Hague. And you see this tower of cards, okay, it doesn't collapse. It's not about the tower card collapse, but the tower of cards is at least exposed. Because if you can't have a lawyer that in Israel that would judge a person that, let's say, belongs to Hamas, and let's say you have to bring somebody from the outside. Well, the most reasonable would be Den Haag, because it's the International Court of Justice for War Crimes. It's a beheaded baby or a dead baby or a shot baby. Let the Haag say the verdict, okay? Because no Israeli lawyer agrees to represent this person. He would have to be judged in the International Court of Law for war crimes. Now, there are a lot of people of many countries that don't really like this position, but this is exactly how pivotal this time is. Okay? And so, on a personal level, so we said politics, we're purging balances of power, but also purging the way international law was done. Okay, also local heuristics are going to change. Yeah, if you think 9 years backwards, it was before the Me Too era. And in the Me Too era began the principle of naming is not shaming, because there is interest to the public if a person is sexual harassing or sexually offensive towards people, and the right to know, okay, we balance the values differently, okay? The right to know that this person could be abusive, and is at your workplace, or is at your hospital as a doctor, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, or is that your a neighborhood or something like this, then the need to know the fact that it's important for your safety to know this weighted more than the procedure of heuristics, because there is no access. And when we talk about when you commit a crime that the person is sex chakra, throat chakra, okay, difficult to speak, difficult to remember, difficult to this, difficult to that, and actually by the chaos in the psyche that you know that something happened, and eventually understand that this happened, and you know the person, and so on and so forth. So in those cases, the right to know, because of the risk is so tremendous, okay, difficulty to work is from the root to the crown. It's difficulty to work, difficulty to communicate, difficulty to this, difficulty to that. You have rage attacks because you don't know if the person, okay, what's going on. Like I said, the danger is so much that to avoid such a thing from happening, we began to weight the values differently. Okay, since the Me Too era, and that was the juristic, the ground base was naming is not shaming. Because if a person cannot testify, and they are in that sort of isolation and helplessness, the damages that are done to society when a person is hurt in this way are way more than to say that the person could be susceptible to this and that, and both are extremely excruciatingly harmful. Okay, we saw the Johnny Depp case a couple of years after, but we definitely there was a balance in the way we waited. If the people that were sexually harassed were silenced and not believing, valuing, then that was tipped over. Okay, because there was no balance. Okay, there was no balance in the tipping of the scale. Now we are seeing this with war crimes. Okay, there's the tipping of the scale. And this is going to bring up a lot for many places and many people. And this is going to happen on various degrees. Okay, this is something we begin to see happening with a personal level. So on a personal level, first of all, your own values are changing. The way you have been weighting one value against another, it is changing. You're having new realizations. And that depends on the house, okay? Relationships as well. Which opinion you valued most, okay? There's going to be some intricacy to things. Certain things, because it's the co-presence with Ketu, so remember 18 years ago, certain things can come up because that was the last time Ketu was there, okay? I was meeting a friend that I didn't see for a while, actually 2 years, and by chance, and she wanted to go to a bookstore, and she took a book that was published in 2005 and reappeared. It had to do with the Holocaust. It's kind of like death describing the Holocaust. And I'm like, oh, that's very interesting. And I told to the vendor, this is right from the year when they planned the whole thing. Because it was over 20 years that what we see now, not just Israel, Palestine, not at all in the world was planned. Okay? So you need to think back to 18 years ago. Stuff from 2005, 2006 are going to reappear in your life, and you're revisiting, and your values, the way you see them, can change. Okay? 9 years ago as well. What happened 9 years ago? Okay, 9 years ago I was doing Model UN, and I learned about the Security Council, and I learned about the P5. What is the Security Council? It's the only council in the UN that can decide to invade a country. I was learning about the Cuban nuclear missile thingy. I made an episode where I talked about this. I revisited that and I learned something new even. Okay? Now we have a nuclear submarine in Suez by US. A US nuclear submarine in Suez, exactly like the Cuban Missile Crisis. Except that people are busy with fighting in Israel and Palestine, and you can understand that there is something, and it was even broadcasted, it was even covered on the news that there is such a nuclear submarine from the United States. And I told you it's written here about, I saw like the Stars of David, like people mark the houses of Jews in the land of the Jews, which is very ridiculous. And the marking of US around corners, around the house. Okay, US. I even saw it on the plumbing. And we have a nuclear submarine. Now, what is in the background? In the background is Saturn in Pisces, Saturn direct in Pisces. Saturn imploded one submarine with a few rich people, with plenty of wealth, okay, that went to the Titanic when it was going retrograde. I think when it was going retrograde or when it just entered, I don't remember. And then it is drowned a ship where there were refugees, but they were locked so that they drowned on purpose, because even if the ship was not drowning on purpose, they were locked on purpose. Nobody let them go on purpose so that they will drown. They were refugees. Okay? And so these two, and in one submarine, everybody's looking for these people, but they're dead. The other perhaps could be saved lives, but they were locked on purpose and they died. They drowned to death. Now we have a nuclear submarine in Suez. It's not too far from the Middle East if such a thing implodes. And now nuclear energy, we know with Pluto and Neptune, the sextile, that it is leaking. Okay, nuclear energy tends to leak. It's not just the Chernobyl, it's just the quality of Neptune and Pluto. Neptune is leaking, Pluto is nuclear. Nuclei. Okay, so nuclear energy leaking. That's the spirit of the times. With Saturn in Pisces, unfortunately, it was like, you didn't know nothing about the refugees. You tend to that submarine, you didn't do nothing about the refugees. And now we have a nuclear submarine that nobody's tending to because everybody's tending to the refugees. So that we will tend to the refugees and will not tend to the nuclear submarine. Okay? So a submarine can implode. If such a thing happens, there's leakage. It's the entire ocean system, okay, from Suez to the Mediterranean, it basically pollutes the entire ocean. It's the sea, okay? It's Neptune realm. We're Pisces realm. It's not on land, it's not in the air even, it's the ocean. And Saturn ruling Pluto in Pisces here is not impossible for such a thing to happen. Okay? Because at first I was thinking, oh, when Pluto will be in Pisces, probably something like this can happen. But then Saturn is ruling Pluto and it is in Pisces, and we already got 2 clues. Okay, submarine exploded on the way to Titanic. Everybody were looking for it, but too late. And a refugee ship drowned. Nobody was looking for the people. The refugees were locked on purpose so that they drowned on purpose. So that they will not be saved, okay? On purpose. Now, we have a nuclear submarine by Suez. And remember, this is not the first time. There was a ship that tipped over, and I think it had petrol that was polluting Suez. And there were problems with a lot of shipping because it was delivering something. I think there were dildos there. Now that I think about it, what's the dildos one? There were more things about it. It was just a cargo ship, and it tipped over. I don't remember if it had petrol in it and it was spilled into it. Okay, so this point in Suez, where the nuclear submarine now is, there is not a place in the world that would not be affected if such a thing happened. And we are in the edge of nuclear energy leak. Okay, a plus imploding of a submarine. So this is an actual risk. So this is in the background. Look at me. I'm trying to do personal. I'm trying to give you personal forecast, but it goes back to the political and to all these things. Yeah, Venus is also consumption in the sense of, foods, sweets, stuff like that. So we can go to the old things that we liked, but also decide that certain things are not for us. Let go even of eating sweets, but this is more the Taurus part. Here it's more the purchase of goods. Right now Ketu is very close to Spica. Okay, so the purchase of goods. and the way that we have been making purchases and the values we have. Now there is a war, so people say buy local. Um, and then you look at it, what is more important, to have food or to buy local? Okay, because if you buy local and it's very expensive, then it's a problem. So who has the ability to weight values in a particular way? Okay, let's say you want to buy local, but it's more expensive. And for you, it means that you will not have enough food on your table. So what do? Okay, go to the supermarket and they ask you for a digital ID, so you have to steal food. Whose food are you going to steal? You're going to steal from the supermarket, or you're going to steal from the local shop? Of the local shop, easier to steal, but it's local produce. Yeah, supermarket more difficult to steal. It really does get to that nitty gritty. And Libra is about intricacy. Libra is about the process of weighting one against the other. When Mars was in Libra, I was thinking to buy, and it was my second house, I was thinking to buy a lipstick. I went all shops. I said, I don't find anything new, refreshing. Okay, Aries is new, refreshing. There are things that I like, but it's like I've had this color. And then I bought an eyeshadow. Okay, this is Libra. It weights every decision as if it was the most important decision on earth, even if it's just a random decision. That is Libra. But the old ways you've been doing things is changing. Also because the circumstances are changing. Okay, we are shown by the people who went in the 7th of October, the people who went to slaughter people, basically, they were looking for food. And what they don't have in Gaza is, probably because of religion, wine and beer. And so there were films of these people who were coming to basically commit a slaughter in horrid ways, running into the fridge. And they're like, oh my God, you won't believe what they have here. They have wine, they have beer. And they drinking the wine and the beer. Okay, it's nothing to do with Islam. They just don't have wine and beer in Gaza, so they found the fridge and they're like, well, we're supposed to do a holy war, be, I don't know, shaheed or whatnot. But oh, there is wine and beer. The people of Hamas, okay? And indeed, in Gaza, you don't have a lot of, you don't have wine and beer. And so they're like, oh my God, they have a lot of food. They have wine, they have beer, and they're drinking and drinking and drinking in the middle of all the, those kind of weird scenes. And so this is a very, 7th of October was before Venus ingressed into Libra, but the other side is Mars and Rahu, is consumerism. So we're going to have also, that depending on if you didn't, it's like if you didn't have wine and beer, you will have wine and beer. If you constantly was eating organic, then you will have some non-organic food. If you didn't have a lot of food, you might have more food. If you didn't have more food, you might have, if you had a lot of food, you might have with less food. And so it really does balance things in the tipping of the scales. This is why they say Saturn exalts in Libra. And so this tipping of the scales when it comes to assets, okay, if you didn't have assets, you might now have assets. if you had assets, might now not have assets, because so many houses are being bombed, even in Israel, not just in Palestine, and probably in Ukraine, in Russia, so many houses being bombed, and some of the houses belong to people. Not all people have so many houses. Sometimes that's the house that they had, and they were relying on a tenant to pay the pension, and the tenants could no longer pay, and then the house, poof. So the tenant, maybe they will find, a refugee camp somewhere, and the landlord is like, there goes the pension. And now there, if depending on their situation, because that can be like a tower cards that collapses into itself. And so those things are now changing. So we had, and looks. With Venus in Libra here, the position with Ketu, we are revisiting beauty standards. Some people, just because of the situation, they were not able to keep certain beauty standards. And some people actually more like, in crisis, they're like, I just want to feel good, so I put on some makeup, I put on some this, because it's like, hey, it's a war, what can I do? I bought suddenly essential oils, some essential oils that I could get my hands on, because I said, oh, it's relaxing, it's this, and I really felt like, and it has been a while because I was busy growing my garden, so I didn't do aromatherapy much, but then I did for the soldiers a little bit, some donation, and yes, and for the people. So it is, yes, it is what it is. And by the way, when I say this, because if you put, let's say, rose essential oil is connecting people with love, so even if you do it for a soldier, so they can be connected with love, and have love in nature, which is important. Okay, it's not to encourage people to kill, but actually to center them, so they will not have excess violence, and hopefully not have excess violence committed against them as well. More about this Venus Libra. As I said, values, assets, a relationship. You might be attracted to different people than before, or you might suddenly see things in a new light, things getting along, things complementing each other. But again, if you are the type of person that was always in a relationship, you would be alone a little bit, regardless of if it is Ra or Ketu, or if it's, regardless of the relation to your seventh house. If you're just the type of more into relationships, you might be more alone. If you're the type that was more alone, you might desire a relationship, you might be in a relationship. And this is a Venus cycle, okay? It's not a great, it's a cycle within cycle. It's not a tremendous 9 and 18 years. You'll have segments of that, but it's just Venus going through Libra. Okay, she will conjunct Ketu when Ketu is 22 degrees and she's in 22 degrees. This means that our values are changing. Yes, it means there's the figure that a Libra associated can be, but it also means that our values around the notion of to kill and be killed are changing. Okay, we are probably reassessing what we call war crime. Okay. Yes, with Venus, probably this is where it's going. And again, it is the to kill and be killed. It's also the to kill. You understand? Mm? So and it's also important to remember, because if in the past, let's say, women that don't want to wed, they were killed or buried in the sands. Then also for climate, we know that nothing grows where children are being abused, nothing grows. Where women are being abused, nothing grows. The land is not fertile. And there are even countries where you see the sand is even not compatible to build buildings with, to build houses with, okay, even houses of sand. And this is where for so long women and children are not being treated well, that the sand is becoming, you have dunes of sand, but you cannot grow anything there, okay? And this is very important um, to remember, because it already plays part in climate. For men, okay, when we don't listen to our veterans, when men are lonely, invalidated, and so on and so forth, um, then this is the elements of fire and air, okay? So we can have excess fire or not enough fire, or the air can be polluted, okay, because if man is not listened to, these are elements of air and fire, but also it's not listened to by obeyed. No, it's to listen and to validate, okay? It's like you also have a right to exist. What you say is also important. Um, Especially men. Mars is warriors, so let's say veterans. Okay, if you don't listen to, if you listen to veterans, you know they would tell you this time that is going to happen, that is going to happen, that is going to happen. Okay, but if you don't listen to veterans, then yes, unfortunately, we had even a veteran that set himself on fire. Okay, because he did not, he was excluded from society. And so Yitzhak Saadian, okay, is actually living um, in a village in Israel. And only then people raised some money, some funds for him. But it's very important, okay, when veterans are being mistreated, or they say, I committed illegal order, this is not right, we should not be given illegal orders, and they say you are traitors, you are this, you are that, then it can cause fires, and it can cause polluted air, okay? Simply, like, these are the elements that are young, that are really meant for women. If they are mistreated, the land, the soil is not fertile, and the water can be polluted, okay? So now we're talking about the balance of the elements, the alchemy. Then this awareness is going to be very important, and there are people that are now awakening to this awareness, and then there are people who are very, very aware of this, and now they're like, okay, I just need a break from balancing the world. I just need to be. So yes. Um, what more? Venus. Okay, on a personal level, you might be listening to different music, wearing different makeup, being attracted to different people, being in a relationship or not in a relationship, buy different things, or decide um, differently as to how you spend your money. Um, I think I said this. So for the joy and pleasure, you're gonna have new insights also on in this arena. Um, and with Libra, they can be, it's kind of like the flip side, okay? Because Libra is so busy balancing, so it's like it's this side and then it is the flip side. So you might say one thing and do another, okay? And this is, again, it's just the nature of Libra, because it's the balancing act. It's like you say something, you think something at one moment, then at another moment you think something completely differently, and you say one thing, you do another. Okay, and it's not that there is the incongruencies just between your words and your actions. It's the incongruency between your actions at different times. People say Saturn exalts in Libra. It's a very satirical saying, because what it means is that in different situations you act differently, um, but it literally means that in different times you are inconsistent across time. Okay, and Saturn is about consistency. Okay, Libra, you are inconsistent about, and Saturn exalts in the sign where you are inconsistent across time. Why? Because Saturn can be fixed, and Saturn can be too rigid. And so Libra is kind of like, oh, today I'm like this, tomorrow I'm like that. Okay, it's important to understand that this is not deliberate. It's not deliberate folly. It's more that genuinely you are acting according to the situation because you're constantly busy balancing things. And there can be even a um, gender balance in a different way. Like the way we've been balancing gender is going to be different as well. If you're of two spirit, if you are two genders, or genderqueer, or a trans person, then it's kind of like there's something about the way that we've been balancing gender roles, well, both within the person and outside, is going to be different. Okay, again, if you think about famous Libra characters, it's Beyonce Knowles or Beyonce Carter. And she has been kind of representing certain balance. Okay, it's kind of like very sexual. Also, it's important to me to have a deep connection. Okay, I'm very sexual. I'm making money from my sexuality. Also, I'm very skilled singer. It's important for me that you will appreciate my intellect as well as my body. This is very Libra. Okay. And the balancing of, I want you to see my mind and I want you to adore my body, is something that the Libra kind of plays and balances and tries different things, and surprises people and even surprises itself, because it's constantly in a dynamic um, act of alchemy innerly. Another thing about Beyonce, which is very hilarious, that she works like crazy, and then she had a song says, "You don't break my soul." Okay, talking about the 9 to 5. Doesn't want to work the 9 to 5. Okay, and then more things like that. The independent woman, and kind of like I'm independent, but I'm also holding grudge, that and that. And it's a play between polarities that that is very intricate, and to find the I outside of the we is something that that takes time, because constantly there is a desire, there is responsiveness with Libra. Okay, so the way we respond to situations is motivated by balancing something, and sometimes it can be horrid, because if you are at war, then the Libra tendency is like, okay, you killed so and so kids, we're gonna kill so and so kids. It's like, no, that's not how you balance that. That's not how you balance that. That won't liberate those kids. There's some kids here still alive, and what do you want to kill more? It's not how you balance that. Okay, and so we're gonna have to find a new creative areas, a new creative. So how do we balance that? Okay, how do we do justice? How do we do this? How do we do that? And there is where this thing and when you are doing Venus in Libra, you don't forget Aries, because Aries is the one, the singular, the innovation. Okay, the new balance is going to go from Aries. Okay, let's say if I was thinking, for example, I will buy this lipstick or that lipstick. Eventually, I bought an eyeshadow, but I bought an eyeshadow that correlates with a certain color of a planet that I wanted to give strength to. And I was like, oh, let's try this astrology makeup thingy. Okay, and so the decision came from Aries. It's like, no, I'm going to buy an eyeshadow. It's not just a random decision. It was a different logic. It was like, oh, let's try to do makeup with astrology. Now I got picked into this and I got interested. Let's see what happens. Okay, when you put certain makeup, it works differently. Okay, so you see with Libra, the new balance is going to come from the Aries pole. It's something new, something innovative that you're trying around this. Okay, if we keep doing the same thing over, so this side was hurt in the war, now that side hurt in the war. Okay, Ketu is going to remind you that you have been doing this for over a century, with different state names even. How about every person deserves a couple of acres? Okay, this is Aries, okay? Every individual, not family, individual deserves a couple of acres, a proper house that they can live in, enough space, okay, to retreat to themselves so that they can connect, so that you can have good relationships. And every person needs that. Every person in the entire earth needs that. Okay? It's like, is it Israel? Is it Palestine? It's like, I don't care. How about the pride flag? Those people are being misrepresented. And when they're misrepresented, they don't have a job. They don't have a job, then they have to do crime in order to get food. What crime? I don't know, depending on the person. War crimes? Okay? For example. And so the innovation, it comes from Aries. The new balance is a new way of thinking about the entire core issue. There's like, oh, the issue is this lipstick or that lipstick. No, the issue is that we've been doing lipstick the same way all over again. How about we try to bring another thing up, and that's astrology. So how about you pick the color by the color of the planet that you want to petition? I don't know, and see if it works. Okay. And how about but they don't have house, we don't have a place to be, we don't have a place. How about every person, regardless of the nationality, has a couple of acres, the fertile soil, and it's been valued, and it's no matter if what the gender, or if a couple of genders, because then it will not be easy to recruit to these people to do all kinds of things. Because they will have food. And then not so much war. Because this and that has been crazy. Many people die for nothing. How about we be more inclusive, less stigmatic? If a person you think is crazy, they probably went through something crazy. Maybe you listen to them, because if you validate them, and you don't go directly to the plea, and you don't do anything without their agreement, with them agreeing to this, then you get a bigger picture. People are missing, okay? What about if they're running from their family now? They're missing. Okay, before you call the police or call somebody, or let us just ask the person, what do they need if they find them? What do they need? What do they want? Okay. So the innovation is going to come from Ra. It's going to come from Aries. It's going to come from Aries in Aries. Okay, those who has been misrepresented in our previous systems. Okay, how come we don't hear about? There was a person who was reporting earthquakes. Okay, and he was doing actually something very, very big. He's doing something very, very beautiful. It takes in a planetary arrangement. He's not an astrologer, just taking planetary arrangement and predicts earthquakes with it. And people say it's not scientific, it's not that, but he predicted, he makes very good prediction. He predicted an earthquake in Afghanistan a while ago. Now, another thing that happens in Afghanistan is Taliban, and now they have a country. Women cannot go to the park, cannot go here, cannot go there. Every stereotype you think about these countries is true. And there are refugees, Afghani refugees in Pakistan. They're being deported. How are they being deported? It's like now you have a country, but it's Taliban. Are they being deported? Are they being deported by a genocide? Everybody looks at Israel and Palestine. Nobody cares. And this guy is like, he was writing posts about 9,000 years ago. This was Palestine. And I'm like, how about we all have houses regardless of the story, with somebody has to come with it? He liked that. But then they said the next day, Israel was a legal country in 1947. It's like, what about the people in Afghanistan? You covered the earthquake there. Why don't you cover the genocide that's happening right now to Afghani people alongside the reports that you're reporting from Israel? Like, why are you not bringing this into attention? Okay. So I don't know why, but if the person that looks at these places and studies politics doesn't bother to report how are people doing in Afghanistan, and that after an earthquake and in Taliban, people are being genocided as deported in Pakistan, so that they will return to a country that went through an earthquake, and quite a big one, and nobody freaking knows. Nobody freaking cares. Turkey has been polluting the water in Turkish in Kurdistan. Yes. Now, polluting the water has happened. It's genocide. Nobody cares. I'm not saying don't talk about Israel-Palestine, but it's just there are more things happening in the world that we're not looking into. And the concentration camps in the United States for homeless people, which are basically they are eliminating the journalists to try to cover that. Okay. On the other hand, we've seen connections between Hamas people and journalists kissing each other. Okay, documenting stuff and not interfering, not saving lives. So sometimes you cannot interfere, but when you later kiss the person who did that, then that's a bit of a problem. Okay, so you have journalists that are not journalists but are also covering. They are covering something, but they are also a part of, let's say, Hamas. And this happened probably in many fronts. Okay, and later they say, oh, Israel bombs, assassins journalists. Okay, but are they journalists or are they Hamas people? We don't know. And so the freedom of the press versus who is the press, who is funding the press, and who is the press. So there are all these things happening. Yes, all alongside, if there are children kidnapped, and more people die, and those children are too at risk. And so there's, yes, very big intricacy. I'm not saying I have all the moral answers, but Aries is always like, hey, let's look at it from another point of view. And therein lies the new balance, okay? Therein lies, okay, what is the value? So this is the third value that you incorporate this discourse into, okay? Real estate. Nuclear pollution of the oceans, okay? It's a nuclear submarine in Suez. This is an impending disaster. What's up with Snowden? Is it like... And if Snowden is safe, why isn't Assange safe? Snowden is hiding in Russia, which is a partner to the United States. They have a direct line since 1963 from the Kremlin to the Pentagon. Why Assange is not? Assange, he was extradited by Sweden, later, I don't know, Australia. Where is he even? Britain? I don't know. Why is he extradited? And Snowden, fortunately, is not extradited, because we like that people tell us what United States does. But every country does that. But why are they mistreating Assange this way? And Assange is not even, Yes, Jonathan Pollard was released, so it's like, yeah, but it took some time until Jonathan Pollard was released. So what's the spy stories? Like, United States spies on everyone, but when somebody spies on the United States, then unless he was working for the United States and then now is in Russia, so maybe he's still working in, I don't know. I don't know. I'm very grateful Edward Snowden spoke, and I'm very grateful he's all well. But I don't understand why Assange is not well. Again, in Israel, we have Abra Mengistu, who's been also kidnapped at Hamas, supposedly. And he was kidnapped for many, many years. So it's like, oh, will he be a part of the hostage deal? All these things now. Libra is exactly that. What haven't we seen in a while? That Ketu, okay, the co-presence of Venus. Okay, what haven't we seen in a while? Or what other value? Or what other way can we look at it? Who is misrepresented? Aries in Aries. Okay, so I think I said a lot, and it's probably time to release this episode. Sun hour. Sun hour is okay. Sun hour. Oh, we just crossed through Procyon, so let's call on Procyon to denucleify, to tend to the things that need to be tended to, and make any sort of oppression obsolete globally as well. So, bye-bye.